welcome to another episode of NERDgent Care. I am Parrot Named Mike. Thank you for joining us. Today, I have Doc Soap, Jedi Master Fern, and my lovely wife, Jane. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Programming notes. Doc Soap and I did a really fun, really interesting guest star appearance on Android's Amazing Comics podcast. We spoke about our favorite underrated comic book movies. I thought we had a lot of fun. The episode ran long. It didn't feel that way. And another housekeeping item I wanted to mention, the Star Wars Clinic 2. Unfortunately, I was not able to make that one, but for me the key thing is that Fern is probably the person who we most want to hear talk about Star Wars. You know, you listen to a podcast to laugh, and you listen to a podcast to think and be reflective or to raise a point, sometimes for news. How you related what was going on in the real world right now to what has been going on for 35 years in Star Wars was really impressive. I really liked it. And I'm not going to say that I was moved or anything like that, but I just want to say that it was very profound. I implore anyone listening to this, as soon as they're done listening to this first, of course, go and listen to Star Wars Clinic 1 and certainly Star Wars Clinic 2, because it was really wonderful. What you and Doc Soap did was really, really wonderful. I just want to say that I'm really proud that that was on NERDgent Care's podcast. So I didn't really have a fixed structure. I just kind of was sitting back and watching a lot of Watch Mojo videos on YouTube and top 10 lists and stuff like that. And I kind of just wanted to sit back and get some opinions on some things. I have some questions I kind of want to ask everybody on here, see what the reactions are. Jane also has some questions, and if you, Jedi Master Fern and Doc Soap, if you have some questions, everyone is free to ask, so I'm going to get right into it. The first question, of course, this being a pop culture podcast, the most important question I think on this list is, what is everybody's favorite fruit and why? So, Fern, please, can you go first?
I'm going to have to say cantaloupe.
That's
a good one.
I'm shocked. I can't.
That's a nice one.
I love cantaloupe. And Doc?
It's going to be a banana for me, and not for the reasons that you're thinking. It's, you know, it's the creamiest, heartiest of the fruits.
And what's your favorite fruit?
Definitely strawberries.
All right, just so like there's not any weirdness, I'll tell you mine, which is a pear, even though I'm allergic to them. Okay, so it's true. I'm allergic to them. They are my favorite fruit. I wanted to ask you guys some other questions, a little more on the pop culture side. Here, we'll start with Doc Soap. What's your favorite non-comic book? It can be anything. Fiction, non-fiction, a memoir, anything you want.
I mean, going back to school and everything, it was definitely The Odyssey, which is basically like a comic book. They could easily have been a comic book.
I think Marvel did publish a comic book version of it.
And I was always into the deeper books. English was always one of my strengths. But that just, I don't know, I think just the transition was so easy. I think being force-fed so many books, Flowers for Algernon, everything, whatever. And then it was just the easiest transfer. It's something that you could see in a big-budget movie. And that just, I loved it back in the day.
Okay.
That's a great answer. Jane?
So for recent books, I would say I really like Running with Scissors. It's by Augustin Burroughs. He's a really funny writer. He had like a bizarre childhood, and I like memoirs. That's kind of the only thing I read. But anyway, it's just he had a bizarre childhood. His mother actually ends up sending him to live with her psychiatrist, who is very crazy. And the whole thing is just, it's a crazy book, but it's written with such sense of humor, and it's like dark comedy, but it was a great book.
My favorite book is a memoir also, but Fern, please, go ahead.
Well, I have two, but one recently is World War Z by Max Brooks. That is a solid book. The only thing that pisses me off is that the movie is exactly the polar opposite of what the book was. The book is basically like a collection of people's stories about like actually how they experience the zombie apocalypse. So it's like as the whole apocalypse happens, you see like from the beginning when it first outbreak, and like you hear them not believing it. You see how like all the deterioration, and then like how people come together, and like hope comes, and then like the final like outcome of where they end up, which is good. And then when I was a kid, because I'm not really a reader, that's why I read comics, because like I read so slow that it takes forever for me to read. But Animal Farm was like my other jam back in school, because like the alliteration to like Russia and all that with all the revolution and everything, that's like pretty cool. How they like use the animals, and like you can relate to it with history and that. It was pretty cool.
You're definitely showing your range. World War Z was wild.
But that's interesting, because he was describing COVID, right? A bunch of people who didn't take something seriously, and then all of a sudden it becomes real, and now the whole world is trying to find a cure.
I read like a trilogy of Star Wars books. I start doing audio now, like I said, because I want to read some books, but it's just like comics are so much easier to read than reading like a regular book. Exactly.
Which is something I have to
It's
get
hard
into.
to find the time. Also, it's so much easier.
That's why I love podcasts.
I have some books I could mention, but I'm going to take a pass on this because I want to show that it's okay to take a pass on a subject.
That was a cheap cop out for not having.
All right, my favorite book that's not a comic book is probably Memoirs of a Boy Soldier by Ishmael Bea, which was about blood diamonds and children soldiers in Africa and you know what they had to go through so that people with money can buy diamond rings. And it was something that was an immensely profound and impactful story reading in college for me. It probably shaped my political views deeply, permanently. I think that books and comic books fall into this. Books, the written word, even, you know, when it has pictures, especially when it has pictures, because I read, obviously, millions more pages of comics than anything else, but the written word has an impact. I think that's why when something's written in the newspaper, you know, even today, even though newspapers are at a style, it still has a greater impact. And reading Ishmael Bea's memoir about what it was like growing up, you know, in Sierra Leone during the conflict, it was something that affected me. You can't read something like that and then just go on living your life like you didn't read it or it didn't happen. So, Ishmael Bea, Memoirs of a Boy Soldier. That's probably my favorite book because it had the most impact. Okay, so
Can I get one more book answer, just real quick?
Yes.
Of course,
one more popped in my head. Now,
does
I
not
went
have
first.
to be quick. Oh.
1984, George Orwell.
Oh, nice. Solid.
That was that. Now, like slowly living the novel.
I never read it.
My high school mind would have said Catcher in the Rye, because that was my favorite book at that time.
You made me read that. When
Yeah.
Jane and I met, we were 19. She made me read that.
Kill
that
the phonies.
had a profound effect on me.
I read
Catcher in the Rye.
1984 in a college class, but it wasn't an English class. It was something else. It was like a computer science. It was like it was pretty wild, and I somehow missed it throughout all the high school years. But when you read a book that was written so long ago, and it's like, oh, that's kind of now we're kind of working to that. Obviously, to extremes, but it brings out the conspiracy theorist in you.
When you say you read it in computer class, I wonder if it was semi-related to the fact that when the Apple, I think it was the Apple II came out in 1984, one of the most famous commercials, and the person says 1984 won't be like 1984, and then it's like it says like Apple II on it. So maybe, and I mean, people absolutely went bonkers. It's considered like one of the greatest commercials of all time because the freedom that the Apple afforded you. I guess I didn't read the book, I said, but I guess the book has something to do with freedom and speech. You know, I guess the book is about oppression. You know, with Apple's new product, there won't be oppression. So it could just be that you had a really good computer geek teacher who would like loved that commercial and wanted all his students to potentially read this because of that connection. I could be stretching here.
Yeah, as well, it wasn't a computer class. I can't remember what the exact class was. It was like a very specific, and it was. But the book came out in 1948. The biggest thing is not even the technology side of it; it's the civil liberties part of it.
Yeah.
And you know quotes from the book, Mike. You just don't know it's from that book. Big Brother is watching you is 1984. The term Big Brother is 1984. So
I didn't know that.
It's
Yeah. I thought it was from A Beautiful Mind, the movie about John Nash.
You were wrong.
As Jane always says, you never had a chance.
Yeah.
And we are going to take a quick commercial break and hear a word from our sponsor. Anybody who needs digestive regularity should turn to the one and greatest source for this regularity, and that's Metamucil. I prefer the orange flavor. It's almost like Tang, but it helps you create a nice big bang. And we're back. All right, next question. What is everybody's favorite comic book superhero movie? I would like everyone to pick one. I know it's one of the most obvious things, but once in a while, it's nice to just be able to sit down at a party with your father-in-law, and he asks you this stupid question that belittles you, but at least we've had practice by answering it right here on our NERDgent Care pop culture podcast. I really dislike this question because there's no one thing when it comes to superhero movies. It's always depending on a mood. But if I was like desert island stuck and I had one DVD to save out of my collection because the DVD case was floating away and I knew I could just save one movie, which would it be? For this, I'll go first, and the answer is super simple for me. That would be Batman, 1989, Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton. The reasons are many to keep watching it over and over. I think since I was 4 years old when it came out to now almost 36 years old, I've probably watched it 2 to 3 times a year, every single year of of my life. I let that tape rock till that tape popped back on the VHS days. Side 1 was Batman 89, side 2 was Little Mermaid, and that tape popped. And yeah, it's still my favorite movie today. I think it's the best representation of what Batman can be on film. I like his 400-pound heavy leather rubber suit that is, not ninja-like. I don't care. I love Ninja Batman and all of that stuff in the comics and what he's really supposed to be. I get all this stuff against it, but it's my favorite superhero movie of all time, and is probably one of my favorite outside of like a RoboCop or a Terminator or Aliens or something like that. Probably one of my favorite movies of all time, period. That's it. I'm going to go to Fern next. Go. As you saw with me, nostalgia is more than allowed to bias your answer in this. I'm not saying what's the best one. I'm saying your favorite one.
My favorite one? I mean, I'm going to be recency bias here, but Endgame is probably one of my top ones, just because of the end, just the total where everybody comes in and like just comes through all the circles of the freaking Doctor Strange and everybody. That was epic, and just like the build up to that point was like super epic. That was like a good culmination. It was just like the build up to it, so I guess that made it even that much more powerful because of all the movies prior to it getting to there. It was fulfilling.
Well, you're a real jerk.
I know.
Because I was going to say that I will go ahead and be the bad guy. I figured, see, you're the newcomer, so you're going to get it easy from Mike on this one. If I was in his presence, I probably would have had something thrown at me for saying Endgame, which I was going to say Endgame. But the true reason is, I think about all my honorable mentions, and Endgame has a little bit of everything. It has the Winter Soldier, not the character I'm saying from the movie, little themes from everything. The Guardians 1, Ragnarok, and then it just has everyone in it. And I am Captain Recency bias. That's what I usually go for too. I can't help myself.
Fern,
am I allowed to have the same answer?
Two things. One, Fern, I love your answer, and I think that you're 100% right. And two, Brian, your answer sucks. You should not be picking that movie. And three, this is video game, fighting game, arcade rules. You don't pick the same character as the other guy. If I'm Ryu, you have to be Ken. You can't be Green Ryu. Okay. Okay. I gotta say something. Endgame is not my favorite superhero movie of all time. I will say I do believe it is probably one of the better ones. So taking my bias out, these two guys, what they probably chose one of the better superhero films that will ever have been made in our lifetimes. So I'll give them that. I'll give you guys it's a 10 out of 10 film. For me, it's a 10 out of 10 film.
Tony gave his life.
I know, and I
so
never...
did Scarlett Johansson.
Right, but... female perspective.
She did. She got it.
Mentioned by the water. No funeral. No nothing.
Now that you said that, what can we do?
She's not really dead.
We have to resign now. We're done.
No, it's
you got a Hulk throw. He threw a piece of furniture really far.
That's right. He got frustrated when she died and threw a piece of furniture. You know,
and
remember on the dock?
Yeah,
and that's all they got. But way to go, Jane. You just canceled NERDgent Care.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Those are Endgame gets me. I mean, I am Iron Man. Like, Tony died.
It's so many
he's
moments.
Dead. Like,
yeah,
I was saying to Brian
so
for
points.
months after that, like, he's dead. Tony's dead. Like, it was
He didn't just say that. He said, we should never watch another superhero movie again. They shouldn't even make them.
Fern, do you personally need another superhero movie after that? Honestly.
I mean, honestly, I am a glutton for this shit, man. As long as it's well written and it's done well, I will never say no. And now that they acquired the X-Men and the Fantastic Four and all that stuff, the sky's the limit. So I can't wait for stuff like that now.
I agree. Yeah, he's right. Jane, your answer?
I actually have three. I'm going to be annoying and say three. And I'll say why. Because I saw them at different parts in my life, and I feel like all of them were really important because of the timing. The first one I'll say, and we have this disagreement all the time, I happen to think that Batman Returns is better than the first Batman, 1989. And he will fight with me. We could have a whole episode dedicated to that. I like that Batman in that movie took a little bit of a backseat, and you saw more character development. You had two villains, and one of them you could argue is not really a villain. There's a yin and a yang, there's good and bad.
You just said that the titular character, the title character, took a back seat. But what else do you need to know that they failed?
Because it's important to know the other characters in the universe to understand the main character. Because if you just see him, then you don't know what shapes him, you don't know what motivates him, you don't know what moves him, you don't know what he loves, what he doesn't like. You need those other characters to balance the main character. You learn more about the main character by bringing in the new characters on how he interacts with those other people. And I thought that was a nice dynamic. That was like a twofer. You got two villains, and one of them, like I said, was a yin yang, and I thought that was so interesting, and I thought it was very well acted. That's my first answer.
Let's say I agree with you. Let's say maybe I agree with you.
Okay, am I just going to give my answers, or you're just going to fight with me?
No,
I want to give my other two answers.
She's right, though. She's got a point.
You can't just pick the sequel to my favorite movie of all time since
it.
I was a fetus.
I loved
and
it
then
before
insult
I even know who the hell you were. I loved it then. I love it now.
All I want to say is, in order for Batman Returns to have been as good as you say, there needed to be a third movie in seeing how he developed after having the interaction with these people who shaped him.
You don't need to see T1 to love T2.
I'm the Penguin.
My second one is Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. And that was because I feel like comics and everything kind of fell asleep for so long, and then that reinvigorated everything. People saw that and they were like, wow, we like these superheroes, we like comic books, we like this again. And a lot of teenagers went out and saw this movie. He's my favorite Spider-Man. I don't know. Sometimes I'm like made fun of. I know. I really like Tobey Maguire's interpretation of Spider-Man.
He was the best. There's no question.
Yeah. I know it's cheesy with the love story a little bit, but it's my favorite one. It really is. And the third one, I would say for the same reason, is the first Iron Man. First of all, it kind of goes with what you're saying, because it started it all, right? From that, the whole Marvel franchise. I feel like there was another slowdown in movies. When that came out, that was like, okay, like another reinvigoration. And I loved how the first Iron Man, it was so heavily based on science. The first half of the movie, you feel like you're watching a real movie. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be a superhero movie. It's so real, like even in the cave with the doctor, and he's fixing him and he's trying to get out of the situation. It feels so real. And that quick little exchange that he has with the doctor, before he dies, I just found it so very profound, very moving between the doctor, and him. He sacrificed his life. And I feel like that the movie didn't even really start, because now he's Iron Man. He built this suit out of scraps in a cave, but the movie hadn't even started and I already loved it. That's how I know a movie is going to be really good. But like I said, I liked how those two movies came out of a period of kind of a slowdown. People saw that and they got excited again. So those are my three favorite. If I had to pick one, if I absolutely like Desert Island, had to pick one, I would pick Batman Returns.
No, that was solid. The Batman Returns one was really good.
Those are my honest answers.
What's so interesting about everyone liking Batman Returns all of a sudden in the world is when Batman Returns came out, everyone was like, that was a crappy sequel. That's like what I heard as a kid growing up. This does not have to be a marital fight. I think Batman Returns is probably my second favorite movie of all time. And it's almost up there with the first one for me. But I'm just saying, the interesting point is, people remember that movie and go, it was just as good, if not better, than the first one. When it came out, people were like, this is terrible. What the hell have they done? In fact, it played a small, tiny, tiny role in Tim Burton losing the third one. The main reason Tim Burton lost the third one is because of McDonald's. If anybody ever wants to know why, McDonald's said they can't make toys for Tim Burton movies. They're too dark. So they got a different director. So McDonald's could sell more toys than Happy Meals. That's how Tim Burton lost his job. Anyway, Fern, what's going on? You look like you want to say something.
You're going to hate me for this, but because my wife hates me and says I'm blasphemous for this, but I really liked Val Kilmer as Batman.
So did we.
Oh, you did? All right. Wow, I thought I was like
In
blasphemous
fact,
for saying that stuff.
my favorite Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So having said that I love Batman Returns, if we're going based on Bruce Wayne, I believe personally that Val Kilmer was the best Bruce Wayne. I don't believe he's the best Batman, but I liked him as Bruce Wayne, his interpretation of Bruce Wayne. I feel like Michael Keaton's interpretation was good, but it was a little flat. I don't know. I feel like when he's Bruce Wayne, he's a little flat. When he's Batman, he's amazing. But Val Kilmer acted the way that I would think Bruce Wayne would act, like messed up, dreams, has to talk to a psychiatrist, damaged, dysfunctional. Like, he just seemed like the perfect representation of Bruce Wayne. You didn't really get that from Michael Keaton. You don't really know what's going on in Michael Keaton's head when he's Bruce Wayne. He's kind of just, you know what I mean?
He broods a lot more than Val Kilmer did.
The only Batman that was bad to me was
Clooney.
George Clooney.
Yeah,
George Clooney.
Yeah. He was. Yeah,
Get him out loud.
He was. I think he apologized for it. And I do not accept his apology.
I will never.
At some point, you have to be a conscientious objector and say, you know what? I know I'm just the actor here, but this is wrong, Joel Schumacher. We need to fix it. And he didn't do that. All right. What about TV shows? Jane, start us off with a good TV show. You could pick one or you could pick two.
All right, I have two. I definitely have two that I don't have to think about. I have some that I love, like in recent years, that I've grown to love, like Breaking Bad. Just great shows along the way. But from my childhood, favorite of all time, I love X-Files and I love The Wonder Years. I love those two shows. Yeah. I feel like The Wonder Years, it's such a nice timepiece. I wish I lived during that time. I feel like there's so much to learn from that time, so many life lessons. I'm not afraid to admit I cry almost every episode, and I swear to God I do. It's just very sweet. It's very sweet, very meaningful, and it still like rings true today. Like a lot of the themes, even though we're living in a modern world, a lot of it is the same. Between the dynamic between, you know, your average suburban family. And X-Files, I mean, I don't feel like I need to really explain X-Files. I mean, you either love it or you don't. You don't have to love aliens or conspiracy theories to like this show. So many of them are just monsters of the week, but then they have like the running alien conspiracy mythology. But even just like the one-shots, as you always refer to them as, the monsters of the week are so good. They're just monster tales. And I love the relationship between the two characters, almost in a inappropriate way. I'll explain that later.
We'll get to that. Brian.
I love the sexual tension between the two people.
So I love my action, science fiction, everything like that. But it turns out with comedies and shows like that, I'm way more picky, and for good reason. And it's an easy answer for me. And I might be stealing Fern's here. I'm trying to like predict what he's gonna say. Not to steal it, but it's an easy South Park. I mean, it's been doing it for so long, and it's not even the lowbrow humor. I know we've discussed this in the past, and I think Parrot did sign off it as just lowbrow humor. It's the themes and over the years how the show has evolved. And when you watch an episode that came out 15 years ago and the themes are more relevant now than ever, it's like, yeah, these guys know their stuff. Of course it's going to be crude, even violent at times, but it's really hard to find an episode of South Park that's an overall miss. There's a few, there's not many, but if you go back and you just maybe find a random season, something trivial, season 10, season 11, something around there, and the themes are still so relevant. And the show has evolved from fart jokes and slapstick humor to it's very political or very, it really, like, we live in a society. And there's not from South Park, but the retrospect on everything, all societal issues, everything, culture, it's just, they really hit it all. And not in ways that, it's not always on the nose, it's not always straightforward. And for that, I've grown old with South Park. When it was the fart joke show, I was probably 8 or 9, sneaking to stay awake and watch it, because I definitely wasn't allowed to. Through high school, okay, it evolved a little bit more, but now as an adult, and one of my favorite things to look back on the show is the dad, Randy Marsh. The creators said when they created Randy Marsh, he was like their dad. He was the dumb dad. And as they got older, Randy Marsh became them. It was more the guys who are in their 50s now. They're obviously older than me, but for them to grow into that character, me with the series, it's just perfect timing. And I know you could probably reiterate the same thing yourself, Ferm.
Yeah, that I won't pick it, but yeah, that is my favorite one. You hit it on the head with all those points, because it is such a timeless show that you can watch. I would agree, like, prior to season 10, it's like more crude, where there's not much of a story to it and whatnot, but like after season 10, there's more themes and like more lessons learned where you can, like, of the times of what's happening during that week. It's cool. But mine's like a grouping. Back in my like college days, Adult Swim was like my favorite thing to watch, especially like Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. I thought that was like a really cool concept of a cartoon where Hanna-Barbera cartoons being represented by Birdman, the superhero, but he's an attorney and he works at a law firm, and it's just pretty funny. Like, there's one episode where there's Scooby-Doo gets pulled over and they think that they're smoking, but they're really not. They're just really hungry, but it's just like each character coming in is pretty funny. But then you have like Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That's another one that was really good. One of the other ones that I really liked was Venture Brothers, which that's another top, like, up by South Park for me, because of just like the play on Johnny Quest, the old school like cartoon like type of scientist and stuff, and just the humor, how it carries over every time. So it's really good. Like, that one's like really enjoyable, the Venture Brothers.
I've been pleading with Parrot to give Venture Brothers a try. It's just something about that show, how it's not
If you would have
direct
said
satire.
If you would have said it's like Johnny Quest, I would have watched it. I love Johnny Quest.
It's
Yeah,
not
it's
direct
literally-
satire. They don't go
Yeah.
for the low-hanging fruit, and these characters eventually, through the seasons, they go to become their own characters. The main ones, there are direct satire. There is like an anatomically correct Spider-Man, but he's not a main character. It's the way that as it
character
progresses, it's the development's great. The way that they use the satire, and you're in this world where there are good guys and bad guys, and they have an agreement of how you have to have your arch nemesis, and the Guild of Calamitous Intent is like the union for the bad guys. But it's so interesting and great, and it really is a genius show. But it's just something about how the satire's there, but it's not in your face. They don't go for the obvious.
It's nostalgia satire. Like, it's like you see it, you're like, oh, I remember these cartoons back in the day, but it's making fun of them, but it's like making fun of them like where you enjoy it because it's like bringing that nostalgia in. It is a hilarious show. The character development's great.
A lot of times Brian and I do an episode. Why do I feel like Machine Gun Kelly? Like
I don't know.
I think I'm hot shit, but everyone knows I'm not.
Why
except
don't you
me.
give your answer?
I feel like Machine.
And blow
that
us all
reference
out of the
from?
water.
You don't know Machine Gun Kelly? He went against
I do, but
Eminem and
that
almost
was-
got himself killed.
That was
Does anyone
insanely
further?
random.
Do you know? I mean,
I know MGK, yes. I know that whole Eminem
he's
fiasco.
got a top knot. I don't know. Anyway, so
Let's talk about it.
yeah, right. Let's talk about it. So
I'm sick of those corny hats. Let's talk about it.
right. No, what I wanted to say was what ends up happening anytime Brian and I have an episode is I walk out of that episode saying, all right, I'll give it a try. Like I think it happened with Umbrella Chronicles, for example. It happened
Umbrella
with
Academy.
I know I say the wrong name all the time. It's not on purpose. Honestly, it's not on purpose. I do hate it. I despise it, but it's not on purpose. Like another one was the Star Wars, the animated show Clone Wars, where Brian was just like, "You're being stupid, not watching it. It's you're gonna love it."
It happened with Game of Thrones when it was at its peak.
Yeah, it did.
Oh,
Just
wow.
telling him,
Oh, wow.
how are you not watching Game of Thrones? And this is before it was water cooler talk every single Monday after a new episode premiered.
It did, and that's my point. My point is it's almost every time we have an episode, I walk out going, "I'm gonna try this," and 9 times out of 10, I really, 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 I do love it. Not Umbrella Academy. Not Umbrella Academy. Not
That's a
Umbrella
bad example,
Academy.
because I wasn't saying you have to watch Umbrella Academy. That was NERDgent Care book club days.
That's true. I can
We
see
went
that
into
point.
that together.
He's right. He didn't watch it, tell me I would like it, and then I didn't. He's right.
Don't you put that hex on me.
He's
Although-
10 for 10, damn it. He's 10 for 10.
And watch Umbrella Academy season 2 be good. Like watch it just somehow be a good show.
But all that being said, the time this is being recorded is the day after the premiere of Umbrella Academy Season 2, which I have not watched yet. And my dad, he likes the same stuff we like. Maybe not as deep as we do, but he will be the first person to shit on a movie or a show. He said the first episode of Season 2 changes everything and it's great. That's all I'm saying.
I'm 4 episodes in, and it's solid.
Is it better than the first season? Because you never
I
know.
think
Season
so.
2 can change it.
Yeah, no, the way that they're telling the story is pretty cool.
Now we're going to watch Venture Brothers because of Fern. Right, we're going to watch Venture Brothers because of Fern, and we're going to watch Umbrella Academy Season
Yay,
2
I'm so excited.
because, right,
I
Brian's
I
dad.
You're a real dick because I've been telling you to watch Venture Brothers for 5 years, and we're gonna watch it because I know the little subtle jabs. Just I appreciate the subtle jabs, but just for the audience out there, just to bring that to light, that I have been saying, I think I've been breaking down Venture Brothers. I nominated Brock Sampson in Hero Madness. That's how long I've been trying to preach.
Yeah, see,
Venture
I'm proud
Brothers.
of you, Brian. I'm proud of you on that one.
I think that all he had to say was Venture Brothers is a take on Johnny Quest. I'm gonna say my
Say
favorite
your
shows.
yes.
All right, my favorite shows. It's so easy. It's sickening easy for me. My favorite show of all time, hands down. This is not.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I guess
Batman the Animated Series?
Absolutely, 100%. Nothing to discuss. Nothing comes close. The closest thing that will maybe be X-Files or Seinfeld or maybe even the X-Men animated series. But like we're talking leagues lower. In between there would probably be like Batman Beyond and Justice League, but that kind of all goes with the same. But yeah, the original 4 seasons of Batman the animated series I think is some of the greatest television of all time, some of the greatest orchestral music of all time, some of the greatest comic book adaptation of all time, some of the greatest literature adaptation. Absolutely 100%. It is untouchable. It is a masterpiece. It's timeless. It was just recently remastered and it's animated absolutely beautifully. It was custom made by people who were absolutely infatuated and enthralled by the character and by the mythos of Batman and who he is, how he came to be, his team, his family. I personally think that so many of the greatest writers today, Scott Snyder, were so immensely affected by that show. I think that it turned your average person into a Batman fan. You know, it turned somebody who may have seen George Clooney Batman around on what Batman could be. It changed the idea of a Batman TV show just being pow, zap, wham, Adam West. I love Adam West, but it turned it away from that and into what it could be. I even think that, and I know it's a take on the Tim Burton movies, so it's a little bit cheating in saying this, but I also think that it had a major role to play in how the movies moved going forward, because you were able to see that you could still do a children's property in a gritty and dark but respectfully light kind of way.
And Kevin Conroy has a nice voice.
I would make love to that voice. I mean, really, he has, and Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill's greatest role of all time, in my opinion, is Joker, not Luke Skywalker. So, and I know that I'm not alone in saying that Mark Hamill's greatest role of all time was Joker.
And I've seen a lot of those episodes, and Batman does take a back seat in a lot of those episodes.
Let's go on to our next question.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I can't believe that Parrot didn't mention Breaking Bad, and I can't believe that Jedi Master Fern didn't mention Avatar. I'm disappointed in both of you.
What do you mean Avatar?
Well, Avatar,
the
TV
TV
show.
show.
Yeah, that you're right. I was thinking more or less back in the day, but yeah, that's an all-time classic. It is timeless for me. Where it came out on Netflix again, which I literally binge watched that in like 3 days because it's like that. It was that good.
It was good. I
it.
can vouch. It was a very, very, very good show. It's what's his name? Who did the Clone Wars?
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni. I'm gonna say this. I think he's Paul Dini level.
He did Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And
then he
the
is
Last Airbender.
Then he is Paul Dini level. I don't think you're not insulting Paul Dini or forget his last name from the animated series. You're not insulting anybody from the animated series by comparing them to the Clone Wars and the Western anime Avatar, The Last Airbender. You're not insulting anybody. That's a respectful comparison. I really do think so. I think that they probably. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say. I think that probably animated series proved what a childhood cartoon could be to a large extent. I think that maybe a lot of what we see is maybe because of Batman the Animated Series, even though it still holds up. Like some things, like the first one came first, and it's important because it was the first one and it came first, and first. But Batman still is as enjoyable. And I think Avatar: The Last Airbender may have taken something from there.
It takes immense talent to have a show that not only holds up, and this goes across the board for the last couple of shows we discussed, not only have a show that holds up for that long and stands the test of time, but you said it all, and it's not. I'm not shining new light on anything. To have a children's quote unquote children's show that is beloved by adults,
nice.
You just can't do. It's not easy to do.
Oh yeah, it's great. My son's loving it. Like reintroducing him, he's like, and I just love it because the character arcs in the show is like bar none. I feel like one of the best done in anything. If you want to watch like a good character-driven story, it's sad that it's only 3 seasons, but like it literally knocks it out the park. All the arcs end like beautifully. You're not like, oh, that sucked. It really does its job. It was done really well. The stories are great. There's certain ones where it's touching. There's certain ones where you're like, there's twists. There's so many twists in it. It's good. You don't expect it to from a children's cartoon, as we're saying. It's like you don't expect that kind of story being told to kids, and you're like seeing that they're taught, how to be nice to one another, honor, respect. It's a really solid show.
Amazing themes for kids. I was watching it and thinking like, wow, I wish I was watching it with a little like kid right now, like a son or a daughter to watch it with, because you get a lot out of it, but the lessons are there. They're great, and you see the trials and tribulations of the characters as they learn it themselves, and it's not all very straightforward. It takes a little bit to get there for some characters, more so than others. Can I flip it for a second and ask a follow-up question?
Do it.
What's your favorite active TV show, meaning it has not hit its series finale, and why is it Ozark?
Yeah. Well, it's Ozark because of the actress. What's her name? You stupid bastard! What are you putting me in this little situation?
The blonde.
The blonde. That's why it's Ozark, because of her. I mean, she's
amazing.
She's amazing. Jane just watched a movie with her.
The Assistant.
The Assistant. It's on Netflix. She makes that show. Fern, you watch Ozark?
I tried to get into it. It was all right. I mean, to me, it was like slow to me, but I'm not.
It was at first. I agree with you, but it gets better. And season
I
2
believe
was really good, really good. But I agree with
Yeah,
you. The first few
I like Jason Bateman. Jason
Yeah.
Bateman's good, so I'll give it another shot because, like I said, I'm more on like the comedy and like animated shows and stuff like that
Right.
compared to drama. Drama, you have to I have to be in the mood to be like, let me watch a drama show.
If you like I mean, a lot of people say if you like Breaking Bad, you'll like Ozark, but not necessarily. It's kind of like if Walt had his shit together and he was better with numbers and he wasn't sick or had any other...
Or if Walt had a brother, right? Like an accountant brother. If Walt had an accountant brother, it would,
He's like cool as a cucumber, but that's his character. He knows what his next step is going to be, but he does it in a very subtle, like, quiet way.
What he
And
does to
Walt-
that guy in the first season, like in the first couple episodes, like sets up the tone. So I
Right.
kind of do want to kind of continue watching it because I feel like his character gets even better. So it's like,
yeah,
so
gets
that's
really
why
better.
it's just like it was such a slow burn, I guess, the first season that I was just like, all right, when is it gonna get to the point where I'm like in? It wasn't bad, so it wasn't like, ooh, I won't give it another shot type of bad. Like it was just that my attention wasn't there. I'll definitely watch it again and give it another shot just because knowing that the next seasons it just picks up,
Right.
and that's all I really need to know.
Right. What I'm trying to get out of it is basically just in the absence of Breaking Bad. Like, I feel like I'm getting that out of Ozark.
You're saying it's
but-
methadone.
Exactly. But,
methadone.
and I will say this, I prefer Ozark to Better Call Saul, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I get that from Better Call Saul. That's my way to combat withdrawal.
No, that's
Better
just
Call
the
Saul
cute.
gets better with time.
In all fairness, I did stop watching Better Call Saul. I don't know, it got boring. I know that they bring Gus back, they bring Salamanca back, but I don't know, it kind of just... I feel like they took that show in the wrong direction. Like, I feel like the character Saul, he's kind of an adventure kind of guy. Like, if they had done it in a lighter, every week is a new crazy client and a new scheme, and it was done, like, light, like how he is in the show. Like, he's so funny. Had they done it like that and not so dry and dark, going into his past and how he became, how do you take a character like Saul and make it so like serious, you know?
why
Like it would have
so
done, I feel like it would have
serious?
done better if it was more just you see every client every week and how he deals with it and gets out of it. Like it would have been a lighter, funnier. I just think they took it the Breaking Bad way when that character was fun and was kind of like the comic relief, you know, in that show. Why did you have to turn him into the Walt for this show?
Better Call Saul gets better with time. I actually fell off of Better Call Saul for the same exact reasons. And the last couple seasons that came out, I mean, the show just got nominated for a bunch of Emmys. It's making its mark now as its own show. It does take a little bit to go from Jimmy McGill to Saul Goodman, but when it happens, it happens, and it's worth it. It's really, really, it's not easy to get to that point, but I will vouch for it. I'm not actually caught up on the show. I fell off, and my wife, we're watching it now. We probably watch, it's one of those shows where we watch one episode every 4 or 5 days. It just works out that way. But just tying back to Ozark, I am so glad that the Parrott family is watching that, because that's another one on the list that I've been telling him over and over again.
Yeah.
So I'm 11 for 11 at this point.
I got hooked because Jason Bateman, like, even more than Walt, he's the everyman, right? Because he's not sick, he's not dying, he's just you or he's just me. As we are today. Did everyone get a chance
give
to
their
answer?
answers?
Yeah, we've been answering for like 25
No, so
minutes.
Ozark was your real answer too?
No, I'm sticking with South Park. Ozark was my current answer for sure. That hasn't ended
Avatar:
yet.
The
Well,
Last
wait, so
Airbender.
is South Park then.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is my switch up. Adult Swim, Venture Brothers, all that stuff's amazing as well. But yeah, Avatar, you knocked some
Avatar
sense
still
into
on?
me. No, it's on Netflix. It was just 3 seasons, and then they had a Legend of Korra, which is like a continuation kinda. The fan base gets torn up a little bit about it. I really liked it. It was cool. It's just another take on it's another story of another Avatar, which is pretty cool.
It was also a video game that I recognize the name.
One current show that I'm watching that you're not, I can't remember if I think it's an Amazon Prime
What's it
original,
called?
Sneaky Pete with
that's
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yeah.
That's a great show. I love that show so much.
I just
But
don't
it's
like.
very slow. The thing is, it takes a long time to get out. It's just not as... I wish I would have waited and then just watched all 3, like binged all 3. But like you have to wait a long time and then you tend to forget a little bit, like, well, what happened at the end of the last one. Like, I have to always do the recap. But that's a show that I'm really liking right now that I miss it. There's a delay on production.
If this was a year ago, someone's answer totally would have been Game of Thrones.
Oh.
Yeah. No one's answer is Game of Thrones for anything except most disappointing ending for a show that you thought you were gonna marry your daughter off to.
The ending felt like fan-made, especially the very last scene. Like, didn't it feel?
It was, but go ahead.
Yeah, it took a while to get the hurt out because, like, I was such an apologist for that whole season, man. Like, I was like, oh, but, and then I was like, yeah, no.
You should have heard him every episode. He was like, Jane, they're running out of time. They're running out of time.
I was skating uphill.
Anyone who knows me knows how real that is. Like that's really.
I was skating uphill on ice skates.
This is not going to end well. That's it.
Two
more episodes.
This
is shit. They're running out of time.
I would come into work and be like this to Brian, like, you fucked up telling me to watch this show. Like, I would be so physically mad.
The only redeeming people that, like, basically in that whole show, like, where you're like, oh, I was kind of comfortable with how it ended, was the Hound and Theon. And that was basically, like, the only ones where I was like, oh, those are gratifying deaths, where I was like, okay, this is... But otherwise, it was just like...
There's hours and hours of archived NERDgent Care recordings of us just bitching at the time, before reading reviews and seeing other people freaking out. And I was I was doing what you did. I was like, but wait, this could still turn out. Oh, no, it's not over yet. And yeah, Mike was saying, we're running out of time. They're running out of time.
I was saying, like, no, like, they're building. Like, no, they're running out of time. That's it. This is done. Like, I don't even want to watch next week, but I have to because they're going to, be talking about it at the office and I have to watch it.
Well, you have to understand, it's, you know what, for people who watch sports, like Brian, I don't know, Fern, do you watch sports?
I do.
For people who watch sports, a losing team can pull a win out in the last whatever of overtime with like a Hail Mary skee ball or whatever. But it was so close. When it comes to and Jane of course loves tennis, so TV, comics, pop culture, it doesn't work like sports. In the last minute, you're not going to turn an entire season around with an ending. If the entire experience was a boner killer, for lack of a better phrase, you're not all of a sudden going to have an orgasm. You're just not. It doesn't work that way. There's no overtime moment in TV shows. You're going to need a whole new season to fix something.
You almost had a good point there when you were saying, okay, a team could be losing and then pull out a Hail Mary and then the skee ball. We'll ignore that part.
Yeah,
but pull out a Hail Mary and win the game. There's two sides. There's also a team that could be winning the whole time and lose in the end. That's Game of Thrones. It was winning the whole time, and they lost to the Hail Mary.
But to me, Game of Thrones was losing since season 5. There were so many signs of, we ran out of book. Things got bad for the show.
No, there was some waste of time. There were scenes that didn't need to be there. Like, you see Cersei, like, walking down a hallway for, like, 10 minutes. Then it ends. Like, there's just so much waste of time.
It's like the Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl. That's what Game of Thrones was. You're on top. You're like, yeah, I'm killing it. We won. This is it. And then halftime's done, and then they basically don't score ever again, and basically they lose.
That was skee ball, right?
3. Yes, skee ball. Tom Brady was down 28-3 to the Atlanta Falcons, and really the last third quarter, or I would say the beginning of the fourth quarter, was like the penultimate season, the season before the last one. And then the last one, it's just a free fall. It's like, oh, we went from we can't lose to now we just can't win.
Well, I think the most disappointing thing about Game of Thrones overall, aside from the like obvious overall disappointment, was that asshole went back to his sister. Why did he do that? It broke everything. It broke every character development. That would be like if Han Solo just went to Princess Leia. You know what? I need that pot of gold real quick. I'm gonna get out of here. I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like right at the end, there was a character arc. You're everyone's favorite character now. Brienne of Tarth. I mean, there was so much. She didn't. What? Oh no.
That gets thrown out the window.
Yeah, it was bad. It almost seemed like, you know what, they had to fulfill the stupid prophecy from book 1, so it didn't have to always be meant to be, because if Terminator taught me anything, it's no fate but what we make for ourselves. So it didn't always have to be. Next question, favorite romantic scene?
We just talked about this in some Xbox chat. We're just can I answer for both of us? Yes.
I don't care if it's Mass Effect 3, an alien and a human having sex. Whatever your favorite romantic scene.
So say it on 3, the name of the movie. 1, 2, 3. Team America.
Team
World
America
Police.
World Police.
All right, I know the movie.
So it's a play on the Thunderbirds. It has the puppets. It's the South Park creators, and it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous movie. It's very funny.
It's a good movie.
But there's an extended cut scene, and I don't know, maybe about 40 minutes into, they do their own music too. So it's the same voices from South Park. I can remember the song very clearly. It's two puppets having sex in probably about 10 different positions. You're watching puppets have sex for like 2 minutes. It's a long 2 minutes.
That's not in the movie.
Oh,
Nope.
yeah. Then you watch the
it's in
TV version.
Yep.
And then the extended version shows the finishing and little pee play. It's awful.
It's so
we were
bad.
talking with a relative of mine, and I don't know how it got brought up, but we were talking about sex scenes in movies, and they're like, oh, well, the best one's easy. It's Team America, and he didn't know what Team America was. So I was like, oh, just Google uncut Team America sex scene. I saw him watching it on his phone. He's like belly laughing, losing. Like, when you get red, Mike, and you break that level of like almost sanity.
Purple, yeah.
He
I
gets
turned purple.
and he laughs so hard. Podcasts have stopped because of it. Work is complete standstill, so he could finish his laughing. That's what happened. He's not even a big South Park fan, but he saw these stupid puppets having sex in these ridiculous. It's so outlandish.
I don't remember this.
I have another one that I could add to it. I could piggyback on a different one.
All
For
right,
me, another one I like. What is it? Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the movie with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. That whole scene when they like fighting each other and like then they start making love after that. That could do it. Seeing the extra, the uncensored version, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Our part 2 to this question is if you could be a fly on the wall for the scene.
Yes.
So if you would be a fly on the wall to watch that full scene,
would that be your answer?
Would that be your answer?
Yeah, that would be my answer. But really, because watching puppets isn't gonna really.
It's not doing anything for you, really. All right, Brian, give me another answer.
The 300 sex scene, King Leonidas.
Yeah, I'd like to see that one too. Jane, you?
It's kind of a hipster answer.
No, it's not a hipster answer. They
right.
just talked about two puppets fucking. Come on.
Yeah,
you did.
He's right.
I don't know if you've ever seen or heard of the movie The Painted Veil. Have you ever heard of it or seen it? It's with Edward Norton. It's like
sounds familiar.
It's like love in the time of cholera in China.
I know of it. Yes.
I don't know if you're paying attention, but we're not that deep. We were talking about puppets fucking.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So that's why I feel like I have to adjust my answer.
You're bringing you're bringing culture to this, but
no. Adjust your answer because my answer is not going to be far off.
But it kind of goes with what he said in the type of romance that I like, because the whole movie they're in an unhappy marriage because she actually cheated on him. But in the end, because they're going through this horrible situation, like he's a doctor and he's trying to figure out a cure because all these people are dying and they're in the middle of it, but yet their marriage is falling apart. He barely speaks to her. They just literally have no relationship. He doesn't talk about his work. I mean, she just sits there and does nothing all day. But in this whole thing, they grow to love each other again. And she starts to appreciate the work that he's doing. The guy that she had an affair with was a politician, like very handsome. And her husband, on the other hand, is a very shy, serious scientist that when he makes love to her, wants to close the light because he's, embarrassed, and she's used to this crazy hot love affair. But she actually gets pregnant and she doesn't know who the father is for sure. It's really good because in the end, he just looks at her and then they just start doing it. Nothing mattered anymore. They're going through this horrible time and he knows that she's a good person and she knows that this guy is trying to save the world and like nothing before this pandemic matters. It was really romantic.
That was nice. You're really doing a really good job of cleaning up the NERDgent cesspool.
Yeah.
NERDgent set. Yeah. That is that's a good one. Do you want my answer?
Oh yeah, you didn't give
You
your
don't give
answer.
two shits about my answer on this, do you? I want to watch Mulder and Scully doing it. I want to see them.
But that's my answer for the fly on the wall. They finally do it.
I want to see
But you
that.
see the morning after. It's very cheesy, and you're not sure if they did it. Maybe they did it. Maybe they didn't. You're not really sure. There's a lot of speculation. I mean, I believe they did it. That would be the ultimate love scene to see that, because it's like 8 years of sexual tension. Let's go. Let's see it finally happen.
Then I want to watch Tony and Pepper Potts. I want to watch them doing it.
Like in the iron suits.
I want to see an iron, like from the waist up. I want to see like the Winnie the Poohing thing.
He would be talking the whole time. He'd be giving direction, like, Pepper, seriously, move your elbow. This is ridiculous. We tried this last time. It didn't work.
If we're going with hypothetical sex scenes, then I want to see Black Widow and Hulk because it just doesn't. How does it work?
Wait,
I
Hulk?
said that
Hulk
earlier when I
or
was writing this. I was
Bruce
like,
Banner?
I'm going to say Black Widow and Hulk. Even Professor Hulk would be fine because it's still going to kill a human. But
what happens if it starts as Bruce Banner and then turns into the Hulk? Like,
I always wondered if he is
like,
having an
during,
orgasm,
like,
will
if
he
he
turn
starts-
into right?
It's not going to be good for Scarlett
They
Johansson.
touched that in the Edward Norton Hulk. He can't get too excited. He has the watch, and every time he gets aroused, the thing starts to beep. You don't know what I'm
That's
talking
right.
Yeah.
They're
about?
right.
He has to calm down.
NERDgent Care does it again, answering readers' burning questions. Yeah. Also, I'm kind of
that's
curious.
not a good thing. A burning question for wieners. That's
No, readers. burning.
He said wieners.
If your wiener is burning, then you got to call our hotline and we'll figure it out from there. All right, I think we better leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and please stay tuned. Next week, we have part 2 of our NERDgent Care Q&A.